Have you ever heard of the Radium Girls? Their story starts in the early 1920s, a time of jazz, flapper dresses, and incredible new discoveries for a group of young women working in factories in New Jersey, Illinois, and Connecticut. They had what seemed like the most glamorous job in the world. Their task was to paint the dials of watches and military instruments with a revolutionary new substance, radium. This magical element made the numbers glow in the dark, a feature that was not only useful but incredibly fashionable. The job paid well, much better than the average factory work, and the girls became minor celebrities in their towns. The radium paint was everywhere in the studio, a fine, glowing dust that settled on their hair, their clothes, and their skin. They became known as the Ghost Girls because they would literally glow when they walked home at night. Finding this amusing, they would intentionally paint their nails, their jewelry, and even their teeth with the luminous paint to surprise their dates and friends at parties. They were told the paint was harmless. Their bosses even encouraged them to use a technique called lip pointing, where they would twirl the tip of the paintbrush between their lips to get a finer point for the delicate painting work. Every time they did this, they ingested a small amount of radium. But the glamour had a dark and deadly secret. Marie Curie, the very person who discovered radium, had suffered from its effects, and scientists were already aware of its dangers. This information was not shared with the factory workers. The companies that hired them knew radium was poison. In fact, the male scientists and chemists who handled large quantities of radium at the same factories were equipped with LED screens and protective gear. But the girls on the factory floor, they were told it was safe enough to eat. They were told it would put a rosy glow in their cheeks. The first signs that something was terribly wrong began to appear. It started with things that seemed minor, like persistent toothaches and teeth that would suddenly fall out. Dentists were baffled. When they pulled a tooth, the jawbone wouldn't heal. Instead, the wound would fester, becoming larger and more painful. Then came the real horror. The girls' jaws began to literally crumble and rot away. This gruesome condition became known as Radium Jaw. Their bones became brittle and would break with the slightest pressure. They developed anemia, severe fatigue, and large, painful tumors. The radium they had ingested was settling in their bones, emitting radiation from within, slowly and agonizingly destroying their bodies from the inside out. One of the first to die was Amelia Magia. She was only 24. Her dentist tried to remove a tooth, and to his horror, her entire jawbone came out with it. Her death certificate listed the cause as syphilis, a deliberate lie by the company to discredit her and hide the truth. But as more and more girls fell ill with the same terrifying symptoms, they started to connect the dots. The one thing they all had in common was their work at the radium dial factories. They realized the magical glowing paint was the cause of their suffering. What followed was one of the most significant legal battles for workers' rights in American history. Led by brave women like Grace Fryer and Catherine Donahue, the Radium Girls decided to fight back. But it was an uphill battle. The companies used their immense wealth and influence to deny any responsibility. They hired their own doctors to produce fraudulent reports, claiming the girls' illnesses were unrelated to their work. The legal system was slow and often biased against the workers. The girls were running out of time. Many were so sick they had to be carried into the courtroom. They were dying, and they knew it, but they fought on, not just for themselves, but for future generations of workers. Newspapers picked up the story, and public outrage grew. The image of the glowing girls now took on a sinister, tragic meaning. The public was horrified to learn that these young women had been knowingly poisoned for profit. The pressure mounted, and finally, the Radium Girls won their case. They received financial compensation, and more importantly, their fight led to monumental changes in workplace safety standards. The concept of occupational disease, where an illness is proven to be caused by workplace conditions, was established in law because of their struggle. Protections we take for granted today, like regulations for handling radioactive materials, and the establishment of the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or OSHA, have their roots in the sacrifice of these women. But the story doesn't end there. The radium that had invaded their bodies has an incredibly long half-life of 1,600 years. It will continue to be radioactive for thousands of years to come. Even today, nearly a century later, The legacy of the Radium Girls is still physically present. If you were to visit the graves of some of these women with a Geiger counter, a device that detects radiation, it would still click. The bones lying beneath the soil are still glowing, still emitting the deadly radiation that stole their lives. It's a haunting and permanent reminder of their story. A story of corporate greed, of incredible suffering, but also of immense courage, and a legacy that has saved countless lives. The next time you see a glowing watch dial, remember the Radium Girls. They paid the ultimate price for that glow, and their fight for justice changed the world. Thanks for watching. And if you found this story as moving as I did, please like and subscribe for more hidden histories.